Chapter 10. Homework from Hell. They did a big memorial assembly for Colin at school a few days later, and we had to watch yet another presentation about curfew and the buddy system and how to deal with grief. Blah, blah, blah. But no one really seemed to care anymore. Sorrow was last week's emotion. I had stopped sleeping through the night, and I hadn't spoken to Jennifer since that night in my room. Actually, I hadn't really spoken to anyone. I was busy with research. I spent the last days of March searching the internet for answers, but Google wasn't much help on this topic. If you search for Demon Virgin Bowie Knife, you get hits like Sweeney Todd and Thomas Hardy and Casa di Coolio Ted. That guy's blog was seriously lame. So I started kicking it old school, researching on afternoons and weekends at the tiny Devil's Kettle Library, holed up in a corner reading crusty yellow books about witches and demons and myths. I thought that if I just studied hard enough, I could pass the test. The kind of test that if I aced it, people would live. If I failed, people would die. The building was old and musty, with tan carpeting and only a few battered desks to sit at. I tried to find the one farthest away from the door, hidden among the stacks. The librarian, Mr. Stein, thought I was writing a paper for extra credit on the history of the town, so he kept bringing me boring books about land tracts and the local water supply. I asked for everything on the occult, on the theory that the name of our town had come from some sort of devil worship or witchcraft or something. Mr. Stein always clucked his tongue at me, but mostly he left me alone. Anyone doing research from books was a kindred spirit to him. I read a lot about ancient history, Germanic tribes, medicine killings in Africa, and the Bible. I read every ghost story in the place, and then every tale of a witch in New England and the Midwest. I was a walking wiki of the occult, but it took a very long time to figure out what exactly had happened to my best friend and why she was now eating our classmates. I had finally embraced the idea that Jennifer was a psycho teen serial cannibal. She must have killed Jonas. She would have been feeling all flu-like and crappy when I was. And then after she ate him, we both felt so much better. She must have killed Colin while I was having my freak out with Chip in the boudoir. It explained the hunger that came over me. I don't know why, but I was also convinced she had eaten Amit. I just knew she didn't like that kid. The problem was, I really didn't think that she was possessed or had been turned into a demon. She had these weird powers and the need to feed them, but she was still Jennifer Check. She was still my friend, wasn't she? March turned into April. Every morning as I walked to school, huddled in my hoodie, I passed the football field with its huge spring formal banner, and I saw Jennifer and her flag team cronies chatting it up, as if no one at all had been eviscerated. If I stared at Jennifer in class too long, I would start having visions. Jennifer's grinning skull, Jennifer as a rotting corpse, Jennifer as a monster with rows and rows of teeth. I would hear my blood rushing in my ears and flies buzzing around me. I was messed up. I was even neglecting Chip, who was valiantly trying hard to act like everything was normal. He connected Colin's death to me going over the deep end, but he thought it was because Colin was my friend, not because my lame-ass BFF killed him. I had been thinking about Jennifer and Colin and Chip. I knew that the more I loved Chip, the more I had to stay away from him. It was like every lame love story ever written. I had to push him away to protect him. It totally blew chunks that it wasn't because I had crazy, dangerous superpowers. Chip jogged up to me one morning, nudging me awake from my own thoughts. "Hey," he elbowed me. "I just bought our spring formal tickets. Did you make reservations at the Cheesecake Factory?" I looked at the ground and didn't answer. "What color dress are you going to wear?" he went on. "How about magenta? You're definitely a winter. My mom says winters should wear regal jewel tones like magenta. Or possibly teal." "Right. I forgot your mom's an Avon lady." "Well, they call them sales reps now," he corrected me. This was going to be hard, but I knew I had to do it, to save him. "I can't go to the dance with you. I can't see you at all anymore." "What? Why?" "Because she wants whatever I have." "What are you talking about?" asked Chip. I looked wistfully at his floppy brown hair and his strong arms. I suppose he did deserve an explanation. He wasn't going to like it, but he deserved that much from me. "Not here. Come on." I snagged his arm and started pulling him into the high school atrium. "What's going on? You're not breaking up with me?" he asked in a panic. I found a secluded bench off in a corner beneath an enormous ficus tree. I pushed him down on the bench and sat next to him. "Okay," I paused, not sure how to start this. I went for simplicity. "Jennifer is evil." "I know," Chip said, nodding. He'd heard this before. "No, I mean like she's actually evil, not high school evil. Here, I need to show you something." I opened my messenger bag and pulled out a big black binder that said Jennifer Research on the spine and flipped through photocopies from the library and printouts from the internet. Chip backed away an inch. "Needy, I care about you a lot as a person, and I'm scared of what's happening to you." Chip was so sweet, but the boy needed to shut up and listen. "Please, just let me show you." He could see he didn't have a choice, so he just nodded. "So, I've been through the occult section of the library 5 times. I found the photocopy I was looking for and showed it to him." "Our library has an occult section?" he asked. "Well, it's small," I admitted, "but yeah, it's got like Go Ask Alice and Sammy Davis Jr.'s biography, and then some, like really obscure esoteric texts. Who knew? Anyway, just read this." He stumbled over the very first word, so I said it for him. "Demonic transference. It's something that happens when you try to sacrifice a virgin to Satan without using an actual virgin." Chip stared at me like I was one of those people who wear tinfoil hats to keep the aliens away. I continued anyway. "That's what happened to Jennifer. Those guys from that band were trying to sacrifice her in the woods. But what they didn't know is that Jennifer hasn't been a virgin for years. It all makes sense now. Read this." I grabbed the binder back from him and read off the page. "If the human sacrifice is impure, the result may still be attained, but a demon will forever reside in the soul of the victim. She must forever consume flesh to sustain the demon. See?" "Okay," said Chip. He wasn't connecting the dots. "She's eating boys. They make her all pretty and glowy and her hair looks amazing. And also, she's like invincible or something. I don't know, but when she's hungry, she gets weak and cranky and ugly. I mean, ugly for her. It's because she needs to feed. She needs their life force." "You really think that Jennifer killed Jonas and Colin?" he asked me slowly. I nodded vigorously. "And possibly Amit from India. I know she's not herself anymore. You don't understand what I've seen. She showed me." "Needy, I think that you need help." I fell silent. He hadn't believed a word. Crap. "I really think you should talk to Dr. Feely or something. Just, collect your thoughts. I know you've been through a lot," he said gently. "You don't believe me. You think I'm a nutter." He took the binder from my hands and closed it. "It's not that I don't believe you, it's that I just don't believe this." He tapped the binder with his finger. I understood why he didn't want to catch my infectious craziness. Only I wasn't crazy. Everyone else was crazy. But when you're the only sane one, you might as well be crazy. It's subjective, you know? This isn't happening, I whispered. This is a nightmare. I turned to look him in the eyes. It's not safe for us to be together right now. His brow creased. So wait, you are breaking up with me? I'm not your guy anymore? I know you're next. I can feel it. What about the dance? Who cares about the dang dance? I burst out. I do, he said. I ordered your corsage already. It's an orchid and it was $12. I relented a little. Look, I'll be at the dance. I need to keep an eye on Jennifer. Just don't come near me. He looked at me like a puppy abandoned on the side of the road. My stomach lurched. I felt sick, but I was damned if I was going to let her get her teeth into him. I don't think I want to anyway. He handed the binder back to me and then walked away. I watched him go with a big pain in my heart. I was so in love with him, and I totally messed it up. And at long last, I was starting to come to grips with the fact that Jennifer Check was a complete bitch. Chapter 11. Primpin' Ain't Easy. The theme of the dance was Through the Trees. Everyone still loved that damn song. The dance committee took it very literally and spent the first 2 weeks of April making papier-mâché trees to turn the gym into the woods, as if we needed any more woods around here. The dance came fast. It had been about a month since Colin's death, and he died a month after Jonas, so I was pretty sure Jennifer needed to feed. I assumed she would go for the gold and pick someone off tonight at the dance. And I assumed she would pick Chip precisely because I didn't want her to. First a jock, then a goth. I knew she'd snack on a nerd next. I got dressed in my room. My mom had come home the week before with this outrageous 80s remix dress she got from a woman she worked with. It was magenta of all shades, and it had a lot going on. Poofed sleeves, big old rosette on the hip, laces up the back, flouncy short front skirt with ruffles and tulle, and a longer skirt in the rear. Chip was going to love it. Too bad he wasn't my date. Spectre ran around my feet, nibbling on loose tulle. Mom was behind me wielding a very hot curling iron. You look beautiful, she said. I stared at myself in the mirror. I look pork stupid. No, she chided. You've got that tiny waist like a fashion model. I always thought you looked like Cindy Crawford. Who? One of the great beauties of our time. She's even got a mole like you, except hers is on her face. I felt a sear on my neck. Ow, you're too close to my neck with that thing. Well, if Chip gives you a hickey, you can just tell everyone I burned you. Mom, I told you, Chip and I broke up. All the more reason to look glamorous. Hold still. She wound another strand of my mousy hair around the barrel of the curling iron. What are you doing to my hair? Hooker helmet, she replied. Mom, well, you've got big whatnots. You ought to have big hair. By the time she was done, I looked like a poodle, or maybe the Bride of Frankenstein. She took off my glasses, which was almost a relief. I couldn't bear to look at myself anymore, or the gold BFF necklace I still wore around my neck. Somehow it seemed appropriate to wear it, though, to the end. My mom dragged out the digital camera and took a few shots of me in the living room with our plaid armchair in the background. Then she came to stand next to me and held her arm out to take some of us together. When we looked at the photos on the screen, though, my mom's eyes were closed and I looked like I was miserable. I guess that's because I was. I feel bad those are the last pictures she'll have of me, though. The gym decorations were an assault on the eyes. The trees they made were like green and purple bruises, and it looked like a party store had exploded, leaving balloons and streamer debris everywhere. A big banner read through the trees, Spring Formal. There was a DJ spinning bad music. Whenever a song ended, there was a big jump. The guy had no smooth moves whatsoever. I saw the dead girls walking around in a pack. Chloe was popping balloons with a pin. As she popped each one, she said something like, "This is my heart, pop, my soul, pop, everything I once believed in, pop." A few jerks laughed at my dress as I walked through the crowd, looking for Jennifer. I didn't care. I was on a mission. I didn't see her or Chip, so I ladled some cranberry juice into a plastic cup and leaned against the wall to wait. I would wait all night if I had to. I wondered if she would bring a date. Couples were grinding on the floor, and the minutes ticked by very slowly. I checked my watch. Mickey Mouse's hands told me they were both late. Mr. Oblewski walked up to the DJ stand and grabbed the microphone. He had on his tux from the 70s with a blue ruffled shirt. His claws shimmered when the disco ball light hit it. The music faded down to a low beat so he could speak. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" he started. The crowd quieted down but looked annoyed about it. "Welcome to the spring formal. I hope you've all had an opportunity to consume the cookies and fruit juice that were so generously donated by the Parents Club." There were a few hand claps, from the parent chaperones mostly. "But the real treat is yet to come. We have some very special guests tonight. These fine young gentlemen were kind enough to take a break from their sold-out national tour and play our dance for free." A buzz rippled through the crowd, and I heard Chastity scream in happiness. Me, I choked on my generously donated fruit juice. Mr. W paused dramatically for effect. Then he raised his metal claw in the air and joyously shouted, "Boys and girls, please welcome Low Shoulder." Girls rushed the stage, shrieking as the lights came up to reveal those complete tools, as they launched into a new version of that same friggin' song. Their logo hung on a curtain behind them. I finally recognized that the car tipping over was the road sign for Low Shoulder. How lame is that? I still didn't see Jennifer or Chip anywhere. Finally, the dim bulb in my head fizzled, and I almost soiled my white cotton undies. "Chip!" I cried out loud. I scrambled toward the gym doors, stumbling in the stupid high heels that Mom had dyed to match the dress. I burst outside into the brisk air. There was a little bit of fog, and the few street lamps around the parking lot had a spooky glow about them. I kicked off the magenta satin pumps in the parking lot and started sprinting for McCullum Park. One thing people don't know about me is that I'm fast. I just never went out for track because I look bad in shorts. Also, Jennifer told me track was for lesies. But I am. Fast, I mean. Even in that afterbirth of a dress, I tore up the asphalt. I had to. I was running for his life. Chapter 12. When the Chip is Down. First, I ran to Chip's house. I had one last tiny chewed-up shred of string cheese hope that he was just running late. I fell to my knees on his front porch, panting as I leaned all my weight into the doorbell. His little sister, Camille, answered the door. She was a cute kid, heavy bangs, round moon face. She was eating a popsicle, leaving red, sticky smears on her face. "Well, hi there, Camille. Is Chipper home?" I gave it my best effort not to scare the kid, but I think the visual of me in a magenta poof ball collapsed on her porch gave me away. She looked at me like I was a stranger offering her razor blades on Halloween. She licked her popsicle again. We were at an impasse. Thankfully, their mom came to the door and shoved Camille aside. "Needy, is something wrong?" she asked, taking in my hot mess. "Where's Chip?" I begged her. "Please be home, please be home, please be home. He left for the dance at least 20 minutes ago," she said in confusion. "He certainly should have been there by now." Shit. He walked? Mrs. Dove, you mean to tell me that in these dangerous, godless times, you let your only son walk alone at night? I staggered to my feet. Well, it's only 5 blocks, she protested, peering closer at me. My God, your hair is... Which way did he go? I interrupted her. There was no time to explain the hooker helmet. He usually cuts across the park. Why don't you try... But I was already off and running for McCullum Park. I heard Mrs. Dove call behind me in bewilderment. Anita? I reached the park, sweaty and with bloody feet. Or they were just stained from the shoes. Hard to call. I panted for a second, scanning the park for Chip, but I didn't see anything. Chip? I yelled. I waited and heard a scream off to the right. I hiked up my skirt and took off sprinting again toward Murphy Pool. Murphy Pool was this community pool they had closed down a while ago because it was too darn cold to go swimming in Minnesota most of the time, and no one ever used it. Now kids just sneaked in to skateboard and spray paint and do drugs. The pool is fenced in, but everyone just climbs over it. It's the perfect place to murder someone. I was going too fast to stop myself, and I slammed into the fence, rattling the chain links. I frantically shoved my bare feet in the diamond-shaped holes and climbed up. I sliced my hand open on a broken link, but I kept climbing. The stupid fence was really tall. I heard Chip scream again. I'm coming, I gasped. Near the top, I flung myself over and landed with a very painful thud on the concrete. My arm was bleeding, and it hurt like nobody's business, but it didn't stop me. I picked my way around the garbage and overturned mildewed lounge furniture that littered the pool deck. I staggered toward the pool, peering into the gloom. There was a glow around the murky water. Hopeless was spray-painted across the side of the pool. It was an omen, and not a good one. I heard Chip moaning before I saw him, and put my hand over my mouth to keep from retching. The pool was half full of filthy, scummy water, probably melted snow and acid rain, and Jennifer was holding Chip up against the stairs. His shirt and his chest were ripped open, and I could see his ribs. Even with the carnage, I could still see that, God help me, he had on a magenta bow tie and orchid boutonniere. His face was twisted in agony when he looked up and saw me. His mouth moved to form my name, but nothing came out. Holy crap! Jennifer didn't even notice I was there. She was too busy gnawing on him. I climbed up onto the diving board and crossed myself. I figured it was worth a shot. St. Jude, patron saint of hopeless causes, please give me the power to crush this bitch. Then I bounced once and jumped off the board just as Jennifer looked up. I flew through the air and landed on her shoulders with a splash. Bullseye. I pulled her off Chip with my weight, wrapped my legs around her neck, and dragged her underwater. The water was freezing. She threw me off and we surfaced at the same time, gasping at the cold. I grabbed her hair and started slapping her. I glanced at the pool deck and saw a pink can of pepper spray lying there. Perfect. I grabbed it and sprayed her in the eyes. She shrieked and then convulsed as that black, spiny ooze flew out of her mouth all over me and Chip. Screw this JV shit, she yelled, and then she rocketed straight up into the air and hovered 10 feet above the pool like some kind of witch. I finally got a look at her dress. It had been white with little spaghetti straps and bands of black lace under her boobs and at the bottom. It had probably looked nice before it was covered with my boyfriend's insides. She had elbow-length white gloves on that were now red. Jennifer didn't look so good aside from the fashion. She looked like a corpse. She clearly needed to feed. Her eyes were a weird color, paler than normal, and she had sprouted a mouth full of nasty, pointy teeth. She can fly? Croaked Chip. She's just hovering, Chip. It's not that impressive. I helped him slide over so he was sitting on the stair that was under the water. When Jennifer spoke, it wasn't her voice anymore. It sounded metallic, demonic, I guess. God, do you have to undermine everything I do? She whined. You're such a player hater. I glared up at her. You're a jerk. Ooh, nice insult, Pollyanna. Got any more harsh digs? Something in me finally snapped. I know. It was a long time coming, but I told you, sandbox love never dies. Until a black barf-spewing boyfriend-munching devil winch kills it anyway. You know what? You were never a good friend. Ever. Even when we were little, you used to steal my toys and pour lemonade on my bed and make me be ugly Ashley when we played dolls. And now I'm eating your boyfriend, she laughed. See, at least I'm consistent. Why do you need him, huh? I couldn't help myself. I looked at Chip and started to weep. Why do you need the one guy who's ever liked me? You can have anyone, Jennifer. The cutest guy in school, the mailman, a teacher. You could probably even have a huge star like Chad Michael Murray. So why Chip? Why him? Is it just to tick me off? I half swam to the edge of the pool. Or is it because you're insecure? Jennifer floated back down and landed on the pool deck as I heaved myself out of the water to face her. I am not insecure, she hissed. What a joke. How could I be insecure? I was the snowflake queen. Yeah, I snorted, 2 years ago, when you were still socially relevant. I crossed my arms as scummy water dripped from me. I am still socially relevant, she screamed so loud I squinted my eyes to keep her bile out of them. But I knew I had her. Then I went for the jugular. You were skinny then, too. Jennifer looked horrified. She reeled back against the fence, making the chain link squeal in protest. Her eyes blazed. I'm going to eat your soul and crap it out, Liz Nicky. She growled. And I do mean she growled. Like an animal. I heard a scraping behind me and quickly glanced back at Chip. He had somehow managed to drag himself up the pool steps and out of the water and was painfully, slowly pulling a pool skimmer closer. One of his arms looked gnawed on. I turned back to my former BFF to keep her from noticing. I thought you only murdered boys, I pointed out to her. I go both ways, she said, and smiled her horrific pointy teeth at me. Then she lunged, roaring with her monstrous jaws wide open for me. Her eyes were glowing white. I thought I was a goner. But Chip lurched in front of me, holding the pool skimmer's long handle up like a spear. Jen did all the work herself. By flying forward, she impaled herself and fell flat on the deck. I screamed and Chip collapsed from his effort. I bent down to curl my arm around him. It was hard to look at him with a gaping hole in his chest. He was my hero. I was there to save him, and here he was saving me. So much for my gender role reversal. Jennifer slowly got to her feet, and inch by inch she pulled the metal handle out of herself. Ow, 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 she said. We hurt you, I realized in surprise, and here I thought she was Ms. Unbreakable. The pool skimmer left a hole in her abdomen, and blood trickled out of it. She looked at me. Got a tampon? She asked. I shook my head. Thought I'd ask. Seemed like you might be plugging. She began to climb the fence, wincing in pain as she went. Where are you going? I yelled. Screw this noise, I'm out, she said over her shoulder. She looked back at us. You losers are more trouble than you're worth. Why give up now? I shrieked hysterically. He's almost dead. Get your bulimic ass back here and kill us both. Nah, she said. I mean, you say I've been a bad friend all these years. I might as well throw you a bone. Then she smirked and went over the fence. I watched her through the chain links as she staggered off, hating her with every cell of my body. Chip groaned again and jolted me out of my daze. I held him in my arms, smearing myself with blood and the black ooze. His injuries were devastating. Beyond the exposed ribs, his arm had been ripped apart. His neck was bleeding where she had tried to snack on him. I held one hand there in a futile attempt to keep some of his blood inside of him. Oh, Chip, I sighed in despair. I was far, far too late. Needy, he whispered, you're always right. I didn't make it in time. This is all my fault. Hot tears spilled down my cheeks. I let her have you. No, he forgave me. I shouldn't have followed her. He had followed her here? God, what lies had she told him? I'm going to call for help, I said. What the heck? Maybe the cops could actually do something for once. I reached into his pocket and found his cell phone. I wiped it on my dress to get the black gunk off, though I think my dress probably just made it dirtier. Oh no, Chip groaned. I'm out of minutes. I smiled at him. I think 911 is always a free call. He smiled back. Oh yeah, you're right again. I dialed, but nothing happened. I shook it and knocked it against the concrete and dialed again. Nothing. No beeps, no lights, nothing. It was dead. It's not working. It's full of Jennifer's goo stuff. Damn her. Chip coughed and gagged on his own blood. His eyelids fluttered. Hey, I'm going somewhere. His voice was getting so faint. I clutched him closer and whispered fiercely into his ear. No, you're not going anywhere. Hello, denial, meet needy. Needy, meet denial. He attempted a half smile that became a twisted mask of pain. I'm toast, Needy. I'm definitely going to die. I think I already died before you were here, but I woke up when I heard your voice. I hiccuped a sob. I would never hear sweeter words from anyone as long as I lived. How could this be happening? I love you, I choked out. I sprayed snot all over him when I said it. I know, it isn't that romantic. But this was real life, not some fairy tale with a happy ending. This was pretty much the worst ending I could ever dream up. Yeah, me too, he said. And you look hot in that dress. I barked a laugh. You're clearly delirious. He reached up his good hand to touch my face. He looked me straight in the eye, iris to iris. No, when you're dying, you can see everything a lot clearer. You can see what's true and what's not. The things that are true have this sort of light around them, like you do right now, and I know for sure that you're totally hot. I started to sob again in earnest. You would think I would be out of tears, but I seemed to have a never-ending supply that night. It had taken me way too long to get to this point. It took my boyfriend dying in my arms to convince me that I had some worth. I didn't need her to bestow it upon me. I had always had it. You better get out of here, he said. The police are going to come, and I don't want them to, make a mistake. I clutched him tight. I'm never leaving. But I have to go, he whispered. No, I shouted hoarsely, but his eyes closed. His body went limp. My love was gone. I howled. I pressed my face to his chest, his open, mutilated chest. I anointed myself with his blood and vowed to make this count for something. Oh my God, Chip, I'm so sorry. Chapter 13, Dance Macabre. Eventually, I realized Chip was right. He was pretty smart at the end. If I stayed, the cops would definitely take me into custody, and I couldn't afford that. I had things to do. I kissed him one last time and lowered him gently to the ground. I stood over him for a second, memorizing his face, and then I left him there. I managed to get back over the fence, but I let gravity do most of the work. Then I limped back to the high school gym. There was no rush anymore. Chip already had his last dance. The neighborhood was in total blackness. We didn't have a lot of streetlights in Devil's Kettle. I reached the edge of the school parking lot, which was bathed in a fuzzy, acid yellow light. Near the handicapped parking spots, I saw two morons sucking face. I stopped and stared at them. It was incomprehensible to me that anyone on this earth could be enjoying themselves in that moment. The girl finally noticed me. What are you looking at, Clumpy? Just watching your old man try to suck the ugly off your face, I said. It was mean. The bitterness was already spreading from my heart to the rest of my soul. "What did you say?" the guy asked. I looked down and slowly my brain did the math as I realized what I looked like. My dress was torn and ratty, not that it was so great looking to begin with, and my hair was matted. I was drenched in blood with smears of black sludge on my knees, my legs, my face, my arms. I choked and dry heaved. Leaning forward, I held a finger to one side of my nose and blew a chunk of bloody snot out of the other side. I could breathe again. The guy looked at me a little closer. "Are you supposed to be goth or something?" he asked. I straightened up and tilted my head. "Did you know the original Goths were a Germanic tribe that settled in Rome? They didn't wear black. They wore regular linen tunics. I don't know why nobody else knows that." They stared at me for a second and then went back to sucking face. People never learn. I resumed my limping into the gym. I started to sneak inside and then just let the door slam shut behind me. Stealth mode was not necessary anymore. I made my way across the gym, leaving bloody footprints that the back end of my dress then smeared behind me on the waxed floor. I was a princess traveling through the dark and gnarly enchanted forest in one of the original unedited fairy tales. Before film videos got their hands on those stories, the Grimm brothers wrote some messed up stuff. No one stopped laughing or dancing. No one even blinked as I passed through the crowd. It was like we were on the street in New York. I went there once. All kinds of crazy can walk down the street there and no one pays any attention. My gaze was fixated on the band. Low Shoulder was playing a ridiculously long instrumental full of distortion and flailing drumsticks. It was incredibly bad. Nikolai saw me first. He was wearing a red tie and a black blazer. Gold shirt. He was lord of the glam rock underworld. It wasn't really a step up from the look they'd had going on at Melody Lane. When he saw me, Nikolai elbowed Dirk. The bassist had a red shirt on with the neck open and a black tie hanging loosely around his neck. His hair was sloped up into one of those faux hawks. I reached the stage and looked up at Nikolai. I pointed my 2 fingers at my own eyes and then jabbed them in the air toward him, De Niro style. It freaked him out. He grabbed the mic. "Thank you, you guys are amazing." He leaned over to Dirk and mouthed, "We gotta get out of here." Poor Dirk was totally confused, and he gave his bandmate a "huh" look. Nikolai gestured toward me. It pleased me that it only took one look at my face. Dirk took off his bass and he gestured for the other 2 guys to get off the stage. The people around me started to complain that the music had stopped. As the band left the stage, Nikolai held my gaze. I stepped closer and he flinched. "Why don't you play your hit song again?" I asked with a smile. They ran like little babies. I turned around to face the gymnasium. No one said a word. I simply limped out and went home. For once, I didn't fumble with my keys. I just smashed the window in with my fist and reached through the broken glass to unlock the door. In the dark kitchen, I absently grabbed a hand towel with cute little chickens on it and held it to the cut on my arm. Then I half crawled up the stairs to my room and made it to my bed. I lay flat on my back for a few moments, trying to process what happened, but it didn't work. Neurons had ceased firing. I was definitely PTSD. I rolled onto my side and curled up, but in the glow from my alarm clock, I could see the photo I kept in a frame in my nightstand. Me, Chip, and Jennifer, smiling, happy. So much for trying to sleep. I stared at the photo until the sun rose. When my mom came home, she tried to shake me out of it, but I was catatonic and relishing the numbness. She used a washcloth to wipe the worst of the carnage off of me, and then she bandaged my arm. She kissed my forehead and left me alone. She knew about Chip. It had been on the morning news. The newly minted Officer Duda had been the one to find him. Hell of a time to become a cop. I guessed that they didn't know what to make of Jennifer's putrid black goop, since they didn't mention it on the news. They didn't want to risk mass hysteria. 3 dead boys and 0 arrests. I didn't blame them. When I did finally get out of my bed, I didn't talk much. And no one really sent the cops to question me, either. I think someone rang the doorbell once, but Mom shooed them away. She can be fierce when she needs to be. But even though the entire town had seen me drenched in blood at the dance, they had also seen me at the beginning of the dance, standing around for 15 minutes. So I had an alibi of sorts. Everyone just assumed I had found him and gone totally schizoid, which was partly true. Chapter 14. Chick Fight. I didn't go to Chip's memorial. I couldn't bear to stand there with a bunch of pretenders who never knew him or cared about him. All they knew was that he played a snare drum. They didn't know that he had the biggest heart this town had ever dreamt up. I didn't go back to school. I had other homework and only a few weeks to cram for this final exam. While Mom was at work or snoozing on the couch underneath her embroidered "God Bless This Pad" picture, I was preparing for battle. I had blown it at the pool, and it had cost me dearly. Next time, I would be ready. In the garage, I found the box of tools that my dad had left behind. I went through everything, looking for just the right weapon. I wanted a hatchet. I settled for a hammer and a box cutter. I considered buying a new blade for it at the hardware store, but I decided the rusty one was better. I went to the local rec center every day. We didn't have a fancy state-of-the-art gym in Devil's Kettle, just a room with threadbare gray carpet, fluorescent lighting, and a bunch of donated, mismatched weights. I started with a 5-pound dumbbell in the left hand and a 7-pounder in the right hand, then switched off. My only comrade in pumping iron was an ancient woman in a purple tracksuit. She had to be at least 70 years old. She didn't touch the weights much. It was hard enough for her to lift her own legs. At night, after Mom went to work, I would go to Jennifer's house, but not like I used to, not to hang out. Instead, I would lurk outside in the bushes, peering in the windows. I was watching her, waiting for her to get weak and dull, waiting for her to burn through the life force she'd stolen from Chip. I needed to get to her before she fed on anyone else. After a few weeks, I decided I was ready. I decided she was ready. I put on my new combat boots and pulled my hair back into pigtails. I put on a gray hoodie and fingerless gloves. Even though it was May, there was still a chill in the air, especially after dark. I tucked the box cutter into my waistband and grabbed the hammer. I threw one last look around my room. I knew I probably wouldn't see it again. I went down the hall to my mom's room. The pile of scratched-off lottery tickets and the bottle of Valium next to her bed saddened me. I was about to make it worse for her, but I had to. It was time. I had to put a stop payment on Jennifer Check. When I got to her house, I sat on the wood pile underneath her window for a few minutes. The wind rattled through the tree branches. I could see the moon's glow diffused by clouds that blew past it. The sky was restless. I won't lie, I was nervous. Even weak, Jennifer was some kind of hell beast with weird powers. Who knew what else she could do? I had to rely on the simple element of surprise, and that lasts only a moment. I peeked in the window to make sure she was there. I could see her stretched out on her white 4-poster bed under its pink canopy. She was wearing a tank top and cutoffs. Her skin looked grayish and her hair was stringy. Seeing her room in this light, I realized how silly it was. It was a room for a 5-year-old princess. Pink wallpaper with flowers, white furniture, glittery masquerade masks on the wall. Her mom had decorated it for her birthday when she was little, and it had never changed. I was always so jealous of Jen's fairy tale bedroom. I always felt like she was a princess and I was a troll. I saw her get up and turn off the light. It was dark. I could hear my own heart beating and the wind rustling through the bushes. I climbed up onto the woodpile and eased up the window. I crouched, breathing so loud I was sure she would hear me. This was it. Ready, set, now. I plunged through the window, screaming bloody murder. Jennifer only had time to half rise on one elbow and say, "Huh?" before I was in the room, swinging a hammer at her head. I missed and punched a hole in the wall. The hammer was stuck in the plaster. Time for plan B. I threw myself on top of her, straddling her thighs to keep her down, and I started choking her with my hands. The adrenaline was rushing through me, and I couldn't stop myself from yelling. "You killed him! You monster! You some bitch!" I screamed. Her fingers were as sharp as claws, digging into my arms as she struggled to get me off. Keeping one hand on her throat, I used the other to pull a box cutter from my waistband and flick it open. Her legs pedaled, kneeing me in the back. "Do you buy all your murder weapons at Home Depot?" she croaked. "You're so butch." She gagged as I pressed her throat harder. She had a witty comment for everything. It had always annoyed me. I raised the box cutter up into the air, preparing to slice and dice her. As my arm swung down with the blade, she reared up desperately and bit me on the neck. I leaned all of my weight on her throat and forced her back down. I straightened up and slashed her with the box cutter, making a big X across her torso. Blood started to well up through the cuts. "Cross out Jennifer!" I screamed at her. She gasped in pain and stared down at herself in shock and then looked up at me. I felt triumph. She wasn't invulnerable. Suddenly, I felt off balance, like I was on a carnival ride and the floor had dropped out. I shook my head and then realized we were rising up into the air. Stupid demon winch was levitating again and taking me with her. I instinctively clutched her hips with my knees and snagged one hand in her hair while I tried to stab her again with the box cutter. She struggled again, nearly overcoming me, but I held on. My head bumped the ceiling and I pushed off to try to lower us. We continued to wrestle in the air, fighting for control, when the clouds blew past and the moonlight shone in the window. There was a glint at her throat, and I saw the gold heart BFF necklace. I hadn't even felt it, but I had pressed it into her neck so hard that she had a matching chain of red marks on around her neck. Seeing it infuriated me. Poser! In a rage, I ripped it off and flung it across the room. It clinked against the mirror, and we looked each other in the eyes for a heartbeat. For 1 second, which seemed like an eternity, we both remembered that once we had been friends. Once we had been two little girls, one blonde, one brunette, who had pledged devotion forever. I guess forever ain't what it used to be. Chip's face flashed before my eyes, and I gasped. Momentarily, I loosened my grip. I abruptly fell off of her and broke the bed with my fall. She plummeted toward me from the ceiling. She tried to crush me with her landing, but I was ready for her. I flipped her on her back and straddled her once more. This time, I wasn't going to miss. There weren't any last words, catchphrases, or goodbyes. I was possessed by one purpose, and I believed fully in the justice of it. I simply raised my arm in the air and stabbed her again, this time in the heart. Blood spurted everywhere, splattering the white bedposts and the pink puppy dog sheets. It was a mess. I sat there, looking down at her body, jerking. I wasn't sure what to do next. Suddenly, I was blinded with a bright light. "Jennifer? Baby? Oh my God!" It was Mrs. Check. She had flipped the light on and found me hovering over her daughter's dying body with a bloody box cutter. Guess I can't blame her for getting hysterical. She didn't know her daughter had become demon spawn. "Needy?" She grabbed me and pulled me off the bed, dumping me on the floor so she could go back and cradle Jennifer in her arms. Jennifer's breath was rattling, but she was still breathing. I dropped the box cutter onto a copy of Flag Team Quarterly on the floor and stepped closer to the Pieta tableau before me. "Mrs. Check?" I asked politely. "Is she dead? Did I get her?" Jennifer inhaled and then vomited blood all over her mother. Then she finally died. Her head sagged backward and a trickle of black ooze dripped out of her mouth. Her mother howled, but I smiled. It was done. I felt free. I felt triumphant. I felt proud. I had saved the world. The weird part, though, was that I didn't think she put up much of a fight. I mean, she struggled and stuff, but when I was about to deliver that death blow, she had looked up at me and sort of smirked, like she dared me to do it. Even in her last moments of life, the truth is, I would have done whatever she said. And it seemed to me she wanted me to kill her. For once, we really did want the same thing. I have to say, dying did a lot to restore her looks. She left behind an insanely hot corpse. Now that you know. Of course, the cops did show up this time and arrest me after Mrs. Check called 911. I didn't run. I just waited for them near Jennifer, just in case she rose from the dead. I've seen too many movies where the heroine gets screwed by the reanimated corpse, but she didn't twitch. As they cuffed me and put me into the cop car, I was high on success, babbling about saving them all and how I was hot stuff. My guilt wasn't ever in question. Conveniently, though, my sanity was a toss-up. Truth is, I don't even know who needy Lesnicki is anymore. I'm a much different person now. A person who curses and kicks orderlies in the face and who sees things that aren't really there. I'm a very damaged person. But sometimes change can be good. Sometimes it teaches you something new about yourself. For instance, none of the occult books or websites that I read told me that if you're bitten by a demon and you live to tell the tale, you just might absorb some of the demon's abilities. You might just get lucky for once in your miserable life. They shoved some mystery meat through the slat in the door for my dinner. I wrinkle my nose at the smell, absently scratching my neck. It itches a lot where Jennifer bit me. It looks infected, too, and the antibiotics they give me haven't helped. I sit up and cross my legs. I close my eyes and concentrate. I've been practicing this a lot, and I think I'm getting the hang of it. I feel the concrete floor drop away. I'm rising into the air. I reach that very narrow window at the top of the wall, and I smash it open. Yeah, I've definitely picked up a few new tricks. Outside, the moon is shining. I haven't perfected my landings, so I fall more than float to the ground. I roll over in the dirt and get up. Time to get this show on the road. I stroll across the grounds to the security fence with all that barbed wire along the top. I rip open a needle-sized hole in the fence and go on through. I start walking down the road in my comfy bunny slippers, casually holding a thumb out for a ride. Not much traffic tonight. After a few miles, I hear water gurgling alongside the road. This must be where the creek empties out from that waterfall. I see something glitter in the moonlight. I leave the road, skitter down the embankment to the creek, and hunker down to pluck it out of the water. It's a Bowie knife. Guess the kettle doesn't cook everything after all. I tuck it into my waistband and continue walking. Eventually, a station wagon approaches, and I stick out my thumb again. The driver slows the car and stops, rolling the window down. It's some lech eyeballing me up and down. I think he's turned on by my bunny slippers. Where are you looking to go, young lady? East, toward Madison, I tell him. East, huh? I guess I'm headed that way, but I'm going to need you to pay me in ass, gas, or grass. Got it? I don't have any money or drugs, so you'll have to settle for ass, I toss back at him. Fair enough, says the perv. Hop in my chariot. I walk around and climb into the passenger seat. As we drive, I turn up the radio. The song was playing again. I hum along this time. Through the trees I will find you, heal the ruins left inside you. And the stars will remind you we'll meet again. So why are you headed east, he asks. I'm following this rock band, I tell him. Must be a hell of a group, he muses. The song ends and the DJ concurs. What a song. Thought we'd play that one in honor of Low Shoulder.
They're playing in Madison tonight. Should be a night to remember.
Yeah, I say. Tonight's going to be their last show. I smile and lean back in the seat. I'm ready.